That question is, isn't government debt itself money? And when the government issues debt, isn't that in and of itself money? This question is important because it gets directly into a widely held misconception about money, about printing money, and about the money supply. Frankly, government debt on the one hand and the money supply on the other get conflated by writers and commentators all the time, but they are two entirely different things. Government debt now totals $38 trillion and is just that, government securities, bonds, notes, and bills. The money supply is completely separate, and as we discussed, it is largely comprised of bank deposits plus currency, and the Fed puts this money supply, or M2, as we've mentioned it being called, at $22 trillion. But let's just pretend for a moment that government debt is money. Well, then the money supply would be the sum of M2 at $22 trillion, plus government debt at $38 trillion, for a total of $60 trillion. And heck, if government bonds are money, why shouldn't Fannie Mae and Ginnie Mae mortgage bonds and even corporate bonds count as money? If I can buy something with a treasury bond, why couldn't I also buy it with a Fannie Mae bond? If so, that would add another $25 trillion of money, bringing the total to $85 trillion. But Treasury securities are not considered or counted as money, and the reason is simple. For something to be considered as money, it has to conform to a common sense, straightforward definition. There's nothing mysterious, frankly, about money, no matter what period of history you look at it. Money has to be regularly and widely used in payments for goods and services. And purveyors of those goods and services have to widely accept it as payments. Merchants generally don't take government bonds as payment for, say, a car or airline tickets, as just two examples. Instead, if their customers want to pay using the value of a treasury bond that they own, they sell that bond and get a deposit in return, and then use that deposit to purchase such things. I suppose in theory, merchants could take bonds as payments, and there might even be an occasion where somebody did, but in any commonly held definition of money, it's not whether they do in isolated circumstances, but whether they generally and routinely do. I would note there's an interesting footnote to this.